Anyone who's ever binged on Netflix's Bridgerton will tell you that this show has it all. Regency-era balls, sizzling romance, burning passion, and a little bit of Gossip Girl-ish mystery. Sounds like a pretty solid formula for success if you ask us. But even the most die-hard fans are convinced that the show would have been better off without certain plots. In today's video, we've rounded up all the things that really didn't need to happen in Bridgerton. First up, we have the confusion between the real history and fantasy. Let's start off with the whole tension between the very real history that the show pulls from and the fantasy that it creates to give us the perfect binge. If you didn't spend History 101 catching up on some much-needed sleep, then you probably know that Bridgerton took some liberties, especially when it comes to high society. Don't get us wrong, most of the historical details of England's Regency era were pretty consistent with reality, but let us tell you that the ton, much like the Oscars up until now, was very white. One of the biggest changes Netflix made to Julia Quinn's novels while turning it into one of its biggest hits was making high society racially diverse. Sure, that worked out super well for them considering how non-white people have never been exactly in the spotlight, especially in high-profile romance stories. So when Bridgerton gave us the totally swoon-worthy Duke of Hastings and the beautifully witty Sharma sisters, we could not get enough. But there's been an intense debate about how the series handles its diversity. When Bridgerton started out, we all thought it was set in some alternate history, but then the showrunners bought in King George's illness, which history buffs would know is based on reality. Apparently, His Highness did suffer from some kind of mental illness, so in a way, Season 1 established that the show was based on real history. But American history is pretty dark. People of color couldn't so much as breathe the same air as white people, let alone have titles and land holdings. The problem with our favorite Regency drama is that most characters act as if racial discrimination was never a part of their world, and it's weirder when people of color themselves don't really acknowledge that part of history. Many fans were willing to forgive the inaccuracies in Season 1, but expected more depth in Season 2. You know, since it brought in the Sharmas all the way from India. Not sure if you know this, but the two countries weren't exactly on friendly terms back in the day. There was a whole lot of colonial violence, but it never came up in the show. Not even once. And even though we stan Canthony, it all seems a part of this great big fantasy. At the end of the day, Bridgerton could have just stuck to being lighthearted period drama, but the writers seem to be trying a little too hard to offer some kind of redemption for a whitewashed past. Next, the long and bland courtship with Edwina. Do we even need to get started on courtship that lasted way longer than it should have? Yeah, we love a good love triangle as much as anyone, but you gotta admit, the whole courtship between Edwina and Anthony was a bit of a drag. Sure, it added to the slow burn romance between Kate and the Viscount, but it definitely could have been better. Many fans complained that Season 2 didn't use its runtime the right way, and we can't help but agree. Now, this might come as a surprise to those of you who haven't read the second Quinn novel, The Viscount Who Loved Me, but the doomed courtship didn't last as long as it did on screen. Originally, Kate and the eldest Bridgerton get caught in a compromising position, kinda like Simon and Daphne in Season 1. We get that the showrunners wanted to change things up, but at the same time, the severe lack of urgency between the two lead to a lot of repetition. If we had $1 for every time Anthony and Kate breathed on each other's faces, we probably could have bought Aubrey Hall. That was one heck of a county house. Anywho, their almost kisses leave very little room for actual talking. Sure, we love the fun, witty banter between them, but a deeper conversation would have been the cherry on top of our Canthony cake. So yeah, the long courtship didn't really need to happen in the show. Then we have the whole queer coding Benedict and not following through with it situation. Remember how we said the show sometimes tries too hard to be inclusive? Well, this right here is another one of those instances. Back in Season 1, we saw our favorite Bridgerton brother, aka Benedict, indulge in some unconventional things. We say unconventional because the only thing conventional back in the day was the idea of straight white men. Bridgerton, being Bridgerton, queer-coded Benedict pretty explicitly when showrunners added the closeted gay artist/mentor into the mix. Sure, we only saw him charm women, but anyone with eyes could tell that the Viscount's little brother wasn't strictly straight. And since queer romance is less popular in period dramas, the idea that Benedict could be bisexual was pretty exciting for fans. But Season 2 literally ditched that plot and did nothing to explore explore his sexuality, even though he had a solid arc in the latest season as he struggled with imposter syndrome and self-doubt. But sexually, he ends up casually sleeping with yet another woman. The show could have done without queer-coding him if they planned on following through with the plot. To be clear, it doesn't make anyone less queer for being involved with someone of the opposite sex. It's just that when big shows like Bridgerton queer-code a major character, they sometimes pass it off as a substitute for actual representation, which brings us back to square one. Next up, we have Eloise's annoying naivety. The smartest in the Bridgerton family also happens to be the silliest. Quite the contradiction, we know, but that's Eloise's Bridgerton for you. Despite not following in Daphne's prim and proper footsteps, she managed to become one of the most interesting and fun members of the clan. She reads, has thoughts of her own outside the marriage market, comes up with some seriously sick burns, and spends her time mocking the male-led society. What's not to like, right? Well, no one's perfect. If you haven't noticed, Eloise can be pretty naive sometimes, which honestly doesn't really sit with her character. Sure, she's young, but she's also smart, and the show doesn't give her that credit. We're not quite sure if the showrunners made her ridiculous and silly on purpose. That way, she can be a strong female lead without having much of an impact because no one takes her seriously. Her naivety might not be a deal breaker for us, but it definitely gets annoying at times, don't you think? Let's come to the super toxic romanticization. So what makes Bridgerton, Bridgerton? Two words, passion and lust. Simon and Daphne's burning relationship was pretty much the highlight of season 1. But you can't remember anything than the Duke and the Duchess and their sizzling honeymoon. But as romantic as it was also super toxic. And we're not just talking about the scene where Daphne doesn't take no for an answer. Go back to the first season and you'll realize the greatest thing emphasized in their relationship is their sex life and, of course, their inability to resist each other. Yeah, it looks great on TV and all, but that's just not how relationships work. We don't know about you. Kind of reminds us of the infamous 50 Shades of Grey and the OG of toxic romances for millennials, Twilight. All of them have one thing in common with Simon and Daphne's relationship. Passion often trumps health and reason. So the Duke and the Duchess shouldn't be your benchmark for a good relationship, folks. Spoiler alert, you actually gotta talk to your partner instead of just kissing the troubles away. Up next is this major character contradiction. So, turns out Eloise isn't the only contradictory character on the show. Her best friend, or should we say ex-best friend, Penelope, aka Lady Whistledown, comes pretty close. Some fans believes she takes the contradiction cake. Did you figure out the Whistledown secret straight off the bat, or did you have to wait a few episodes for the dramatic reveal? Either way, you probably tried to imagine Penelope saying all those things, and you probably realized that the two don't really go together. No offense to Pen, but like Eloise, she can be a little naive and immature, especially when it comes to that blind in the face of love, Colin. It really doesn't sit well when you put her behind the pen of the seemingly all-knowing Lady Whistledown. She's quick, witty, and knows how to dig at the queen. If you ask us, the rebellious Eloise would have fit the role better, or they could have made Pen just a tad bit more sassy in reality. She didn't have to be the polar opposite of Whistledown. And that about wraps up our video for today, folks. Do you think Bridgerton would have been better off without those things? What else do you feel could have been left out? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked our video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.